XRP Ledger. There's something magical happening, and I want to update you on this. Recently, Ripple minted $53 million worth of their dollar-backed stablecoin RLUSD directly onto the XRP Ledger in a single day. That single day pushed the total RLUSD supply on the XRP Ledger past $442 million. And at the start of 2025, that same number was just sitting at roughly 24 million. So the growth this year has been close to vertical. And most people who hold XRP are completely misreading what that means for the demand side, because there's a lot of people who feel like the more RLUSD is utilized, the less XRP is needed. But the opposite is true. The more RLUSD is used on the ledger, the more XRP is actually needed. And that's not something I'll go into today. I've talked about it a little bit more. I'll talk about it more in the future. So there's definitely something happening with the demand. And to put this in even a broader perspective, the total value of real world assets being tokenized on the XRP ledger has now passed $4 billion. RLUSD is the largest single piece of that $4 billion. The institutional infrastructure is being built in real time. I keep saying it, and the data is still sitting plain in sight for anyone who wants to look for it. And so first, I'm going to help you to understand what RLUSD actually is, why it matters, that is scaling on the XRP ledger specifically, and more importantly, why the growth of RLUSD is actually one of the strongest XRP demand stories that is happening currently. There's a lot of things that are happening, but this is another addition, another piece to the story. And by the end of this video, you're going to see the structural piece that you need to connect to understand where you should be positioned with all of this. By the way, I am Kamilah Stevenson, and around here we talk wealth. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe if you have not already. And I want you to know this is not financial advice. This is only for educational and entertainment purposes. And I do want to say happy Memorial Day to all of you. Now, let me start with what RLUSD is, so you can understand. I never want to assume that you understand this. I have a lot of new people who join in, and I want you to understand just as much as someone who's been around long enough to comprehend what's happening. And I think it's just great for all of us to revisit information, even if we do know it. Okay. Now, RLUSD is the regulated dollar-backed stablecoin that Ripple launched at the end of 2024. A stablecoin is a digital token designed to hold one-to-one value against a real-world currency, in this case, the United States dollar. So for every RLUSD that exists in circulation, Ripple holds an equivalent dollar of cash and short-term treasury securities and regulated reserves. That backing is what keeps the value pegged. So the reason institutions and traders use stablecoins is because they want the speed and programmability of digital assets without the volatility of a price that swings, 10% in a day, because we see it all the time. So RLUSD is Ripple's answer to that need and is designed from the ground up to operate at institutional standards on the digital rails of the future. Now, here is what is important. RLUSD exists on two different networks, the Ethereum network and the XRP Ledger. When RLUSD first launched, the majority of supply was being used on Ethereum because that was the network with the most stablecoin activity at the time. But over the last year, something significant has shifted. The portion of RLUSD living on the XRP Ledger has grown faster than the portion on Ethereum. As of right now, RLUSD ranks as the 8th largest stablecoin in the entire global market, with a total circulating supply of approximately $1.6 billion across both networks. The XRP Ledger portion now sits around 442 million, and that share has been climbing month over month. Okay. The $53 single day mint that happened a week ago is one of the largest single day mints in recent history. The institutional demand is choosing, as you see, where to live, and it is increasingly choosing XRP's infrastructure. Now, if my numbers are a little bit off, please don't charge me for that, because everything is changing day by day. Now, here is the insight that I want you to understand, because this is where most XRP holders are misreading that data. A lot of people see RLUSD growing and they get really confused. They think to themselves, okay, wait a minute. If everybody is using RLUSD for transaction, does that mean that they're not using XRP anymore? And I also got a lot of people who sold their XRP for RLUSD as they saw the demand start to increase for RLUSD. So now, obviously, there's people who believe that RLUSD is somehow competing against XRP for demand. And the answer to that is, if they ask, no, it's not. And the reason is very simple. RLUSD growing on XRP Ledger is actually one of the cleanest XRP demand stories, right? So I want you to understand why that is the case. Every single transaction on the XRP Ledger, no matter what asset is being moved, require XRP to settle. Okay. So when RLUSD moves from one wallet to another on the XRP Ledger, the network burns a tiny amount of XRP as the transaction fee. And every wallet that wants to hold RLUSD on the XRP Ledger has to first hold a small amount of XRP as the network reserve. Every trust line that gets established to enable RLUSD activity requires XRP to activate. The more RLUSD that lives on the XRP Ledger, the more XRP is required to keep the network functioning underneath it. So RLUSD is the cargo and XRP is the truck that moves it. As the cargo grows, the demand for the truck grows with it. You see what I'm saying? So that is the structural piece that a lot of people are not just calculating correctly with this. Stablecoins are the gateway product for institutional adoption of digital asset infrastructure. So banks, asset managers, payment companies, and fintech firms are all moving towards stablecoins because they need the speed and the programmability without the price volatility. And that means that, again, the price is swinging up and down. Okay, it's not stable. And so they need a stable coin. And as those institutions start to settle real value through stable coins like RLUSD, the network those stable coins live on becomes the institutional rail of the future. So RLUSD is the gateway. The XRP Ledger is the rail. Every dollar of RLUSD growth on the XRP Ledger is a dollar of structural commitment to running institutional flow on XRP infrastructure. Now, here is where this connects to your position. Most retail XRP holders are still thinking about XRP price as something that moves on speculation, headlines, and short-term traders. Okay, they're missing the structural shift that's happening underneath the surface. And I try to bring you the updates and try to let you know what's happening. Either you see it and you connect to it and you align with it, or you just don't. All right, RLUSD growing on the XRP Ledger from 24 million to 442 million is not just noise. It is a signal, a signal, a signal. The $4 billion total in real world assets now tokenized on the XRP Ledger is not noise. It is a signal. This is institutional infrastructure being built in your face, in everybody's face. And every layer of that infrastructure increases the underlying demand for XRP as the settlement asset of the network. So you need to understand whether your position is structured to capture that growth, again, without losing some in the process. I always come back to this, right? Because if you don't have it structured right, then you're going to have to give some away when that repricing happens. And most retail holders are not thinking about that. They have their XRP sitting inside of accounts, and when it goes to higher prices, they're going to sell, and they're not going to understand what kind of game plan they should have had. And if they don't have one at all, what it means is that when the structural setup finally translate into price action, they're going to have to give some money away. Why? Because it's going to trigger a tax event when they do want to take profit. And we know a lot of people want to take profit on their XRP and liquidate as it grows in price. So the bigger the move, remember this, the bigger the tax bill that they're going to hand back to the government. And with all of this being said, as you see the institutional activity that's happening, you're going to have to make the move to be able to keep the majority of your appreciation, the majority of your money as it appreciates. And so this is why I personally hold a portion of my XRP inside of a Roth IRA The Roth structure is the only retail vehicle that lets the structural growth compound without the IRS taking a percentage at the exit. And so you pay the taxes up front on the way in. And then after that, every growth, every dollar that you make, that it appreciates, including the growth that comes from infrastructure scaling, like what we are watching with RLUSD, it's going to stay with you forever. And so I Trust Capital opens the door to holding that real native XRP inside of a retirement structure, along with gold and silver and other digital commodities. I think they have like over 90 digital assets that you can hold in that account. And then they're also going to be including ETFs and stocks in the summer. And there's also a $100 free funding bonus after you fund the account. And so if you use the link in the description, you will get access to that free $100 funding bonus. And of course, you can buy assets with that. They have silver and gold. I've invested in silver and gold inside my Roth IRA, again, meaning that when there's a reprice that happens with physical metals, I will not have to pay any taxes on that. Also, if you do want to customize a plan for your specific situation, that's what my one-on-one clarity calls are for. We get you real clear on how to position yourself, how to reallocate. It just depends on your game plan. We can restructure it. You want to be able to structure your assets where they are protected. Okay. There is a part of wealth preservation that a lot of people are not being intentional about. And again, this is going to cause devastation and harm and loss for a lot of people who do come into profit, but they just don't have a game plan. And so if you're a little cloudy and you're a little gray on what moves you need to make, what portion of your portfolio you should allocate to maybe physical metals or the stock market or cryptocurrency or real estate or whatever it is that you prefer to invest in. Maybe it's bonds, maybe it is dividend stocks so that you can have passive income. We walk through that so that you can get very, very clear. And then also we do have my coaching community, and it's there for ongoing weekly support. Everyone is in there winning and getting their unique game plan in place. There's accountability, there's training, there's live coaching. I'm with you every step of the way. And so both of the links are in the description for that. You don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to do it confused. A lack of clarity is very, very expensive. So get clear on where you are. We have the time to accumulate, to grow, and to really map out our financial future. So be intentional for the sake of you and your family, your children, your grandchildren, and everybody who you are supposed to touch while you are here on this earth. I want you to leave your mark here. We need to know as a people in this world that you were here. Let us know that. All right, like the video and subscribe if you have not already. And let me know, do you hold any RLUSD? I am curious to know, is that something that you've put your money or invested in? Or if you're holding your money inside of there, waiting to buy another asset. I do have some of my funds inside of RLUSD. And so I particularly like that stablecoin. Maybe I'm biased, but I want to hear from you. All right, before I leave, I just want to say I do appreciate you. And as always, I want you to stay wise, stay wealthy, and I'll see you in the next video.